I'm Teemu Huhtiniemi, the lead level designer on FBC Firebreak.
Where did the idea for Firebreak come from?
Well, the idea has been sort of like living inside the studio for quite a while. Like we've been wanting to do a multiplayer game in some way and kind of like developing the tech throughout the years. It like didn't become a reality until much later that we realized that yeah, this is something that we could do. And I think once we developed Control and released that, we saw the potential in the Control universe. So like it seemed like an easy jump to do like something like this in that universe.
Is it difficult because, you know, Control is a single-player narrative-driven game. Now you're doing a multiplayer co-op experience where you still have storytelling, but it's more about the in-the-moment stuff and not the linear hand-holding.
It is definitely a challenge. Like we are very seasoned at doing, like as you said, like very directed narrative-driven experiences. And of course, in for example Control, we opened up the board a little bit so you could like have freedom with the objectives and missions and the order that you play the game. But still, like doing a multiplayer game is something entirely new to us, and we know this, and it's been a learning experience to be working on this game and kind of like learning how to do a co-op game.
I think it's pretty funny as you guys were able to lean into a lot of humorous aspects of the world of Control, like with your post-it notes and the enemy variety and just the idea of like a squad going in to clean up the mess of whatever's happening. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so of course in Control already we had a lot of like weird stuff and like absurdity. So it was kind of a natural thing to look at that through a different lens, the lens of like FBC Firebreak and kind of like see the funny side, because Control is very serious in tone and like it's very, very different. So I think it was great to have this possibility to really embrace the funny side of all that absurdity.
Obviously, Control, you know, is your own game. You made inspirations there, but what were specific things you looked for inspiration in Firebreak in terms of like media or other games? Because I get some X-Files in there, right? I see that. I see Men in Black. I see kind of like something like that, you know?
Yeah, there are many inspirations here. So Men in Black, like that's of course one. And when it comes to games, there's like obviously games like Left 4 Dead. Like it has been like our game has been compared to Left 4 Dead many times, and I think it's a fair comparison. Like who wouldn't be inspired by Left 4 Dead? It's one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time as well. But there are games like Power Wash Simulator for the Clean Kit. It was one of the inspirations to have that sort of like gratification when you like clean up the sticky notes, for example, and like have that sense of like satisfying gameplay, and also Overcooked, curiously, like that was one of the inspirations as well. Just like having that sort of co-op chaos and like interesting mishaps that can happen through co-op gameplay. I think that was definitely one of the inspirations early on.
As a level designer, what are some of the challenges when creating an environment for players to explore and have combat in? Because it's 4 people, they all have to move around, right? But they got to have enemies and they can't be trapped in hallways, or maybe they can, right?
It's definitely different than creating single-player levels. So you kind of have to build everything arena-like and like open in a way that the enemies can indeed get to you in like throughout the map. And also, we wanted to like keep a lot of the objectives very open-ended, so you can do them in a systemic way. You have the tools, you have the weapons, and like, yeah, relying a lot on that sort of like giving the freedom to the player and letting them decide how to tackle with the objectives. It was definitely something different from what we've done before.
What was your biggest takeaway from Control? I know they're different games, but from that you improved upon and in the Firebreak.
The biggest like
your biggest lesson that you learned from making that game afterwards, yeah.
Biggest lesson. That's a good one. Yeah, well, I mean, in Control we already established the world in a really good way. I think we like.
People were comparing that world to X-Files, including me. I thought that was really an interesting comparison. It's an old show people don't really remember, but yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah, that is true. It is definitely has been like one of the inspirations there. I think like what we had in Control was a very solid foundation, so we could always like lean on a lot of the stuff that we did there, like for example the sectors, having them very unique and like visually and like stylistically. So yeah, I think like being able to lean on that solid foundation was one of the best things here.
Now you guys have like a class system, but you're also giving players the opportunity to kind of explore that system and play how they want to play with like different weapons that can go on different classes. You're not locked into the the flamethrower class or the shotgun class. You can switch out those weapons. Talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. So we have 3 kits in the game called crisis kits. We have splash, jump, and fix, and basically all of those different crisis kits have their own unique tools. The fix kit has like a wrench that you can use to fix broken machines. The jump kit has something that is kind of like a mix between a pogo stick and an electric prod. You can like power up things using it. You can shock enemies and potentially your friends as well if you're not careful. And then with the splash kit you have basically like a cannon that shoots water, and of course with all of these things together you can basically like have the splash kit water all the enemies, then have the jump kit come in and electrocute them and this sort of stuff. And it can like all of these tools and kind of like overlapping systems create interesting emergent gameplay situations.
With your job, where do you start as a level designer? Like when you have, okay, we're making Firebreak, obviously you start with a gray box, but do you have to decide the environment first, or you just gray box that bitch?
That's a really good question. Like we sometimes start from different directions. It's really like a challenge that it depends on the job. Yeah, we call our levels in the game jobs, which is more like game modes, unique game modes in the game. But like we approach every job kind of from a different standpoint, and sometimes it could be from a visual perspective, figuring out the theme and like the visual style of the place, and then figuring out, okay, what could we do in this environment? Sometimes we start with the core gameplay, like something that could be interesting for the player to do, and then see, okay, what would be a great environment to like inject this in. And again, we have a lot of like cool biomes from Control we can like already like take it like start with, and then use sort of as a backbone for a lot of the new jobs. But yeah, it's especially in this game, it's less about narrative or anything like that. It's more about the gameplay and the interesting possibilities. So a lot of times we actually start with the core gameplay ingredients, like what could be interesting activities for the player to do, and which sort of things would be interesting, especially in a cooperative setting. And yeah, how could we utilize the unique tools that the players have in an interesting way, so we can like come up with interesting collaborative opportunities.
Why was it important for the game to be really out there and like kind of wild and just fun overall? Because obviously Control is a very serious tone, right? Really grounded tone. Still supernatural stuff, science fiction stuff happening, but it's more serious. This game, you have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I think like I'm not sure like how much of that like was like deliberately planned and how much of it happened sort of naturally, but I think like we have a very small team. We've been like figuring things out as we go, but a lot of the fun or the humor in the game, I feel, came through the actual gameplay and like all the different stuff that we like wanted to do gameplay wise, and then we realized the hilarity of it later and chose to lean on that more and more. So I would say that yeah, a lot of it really started from those ideas. Like sometimes someone proposes a crazy idea and it's like, okay, like that's outrageous, but let's try it out in the game and see if that works. And if it works and it makes people laugh, it's like, okay, we have something here and we can lean on this.
Well, it's crazy because at the game's core, you're basically janitors, essentially.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and also there, like we started from this this idea of like firefighters, like real world firefighters, or like first response teams, and like how would that work inside the oldest house? Like what's our Control variant of that like real world job? But then yeah, it kind of like got more and more hilarious as we worked on that concept, because we realized like it is the oldest house and things are absurd and like crazy like from the get-go. So like let's really lean on that and like make things chaotic and colorful and funny
Talk a little about your career path. How did you end up being a level designer for Remedy?
Oh wow, it's actually a funny one. Like I've been a hobbyist level designer for a very long time, like since the late 90s. I started, yeah.
You're a vet then. You've been around for a while, man.
Yeah, but then like I never imagined that I could actually do it as a job. I was actually studying graphic design and doing that for quite a bit. And it wasn't until 2013 that I figured out that okay, yeah, I really want to pursue my passion, which is like games, and like see if there's a possibility to do this, because like up to that point I had been doing level design but just as a hobby. So I had like
you didn't go to school for like level design specifically. You went for graphic design.
Yeah, only graphic design, because like back at the time there was no possibility to study like game design in Finland. The situation is much different now, but like back then graphic design was probably the closest thing to level design. But again, I never imagined that I would actually get to do level design, and especially work at Remedy of all places, which is like one of my favorite studios. Like I used to love Max Payne, and like Alan Wake, so it was like wow. When that opportunity opened up, I was like, yeah, I'm interested.
So what advice would you give to like aspiring people out there who want to specifically get into level design in gaming?
I think the main thing is to just chase your passion and like pick up an editor, like any editor, and like get into the flow of like learning new things, because like level design is a lot like learning learning languages basically. So I think especially these days there are so many free level editors or like game development tools that you can just Unreal for example, or Unity, and like these sort of things. So you should basically just download an editor and start learning and getting to the process of like designing things and like finishing things, and a lot of it comes naturally through practice really. And of course like there's so many tutorials these days that you can follow, and like it's amazing. So it has never been easier to pick up and just have a go at level design. Like especially these days it's so easy to also go to the asset store and like get assets that look good. So it's a good thing to kind of maybe try out like if level design is for you, or if you're like interested in it more for the like visual side of things. It's good to explore, because like there's so many possibilities to do like scenes and like study lighting and how like architecture works by using like pre-existing kits and everything. So like yeah.